live weather update for what we can expect over the next, say, 24 hours, 48 hours into the weekend as well. But we do have a couple of weak systems moving in that could bring at least some minor impacts to the area. So I'll go into a little bit more detail here in just a few minutes. If you can give me about 30 seconds to a minute, I'll get everything working here behind the scenes, making sure my audio is also working, as I have had a few problems with that over the last couple of weeks. So still a little on edge on if the audio is going to work, but let me confirm that really quick. Still a little on edge. And now I can confirm that the audio is in fact working. So if you can give me about 30 seconds to a minute, I'll get everything working here behind the scenes and we will get started in this update. In the meantime, I will show you those current conditions out there across western Montana. Overall, pretty quiet, and that's really been the case for most of the region today. We've seen a few light showers here and there, especially earlier on this morning up into northwest Montana. That led to a few slick spots on the road due to freezing rain, and that's going to be our biggest issue as we head into tonight, as well as Friday night and into early Saturday morning. So that's going to be the main focus of this live update, is just talking about that freezing rain potential into the next couple of days. Outside of that, still not looking at significant impacts for the next few days when it comes to our weather. All right, I got the audio working. That's working there. All right, I think with that, we'll get started in full. Overall, I'll try and make this as brief as I possibly can, and overall, this shouldn't take too long, but I know we'll have a few more people working their way in as we go throughout this update. So if you have any questions or comments, feel free to ask those, and I'll try and remember to ask that question again. So as we get more people in, if there's any more questions as we go throughout this, I can try and answer those. So the driver of our weather for the last couple of days, we've been back and forth between a ridge of high pressure and a few little troughs that have been moving in, and you can see some semblance of that here on our upper level water vapor loop. Here is the ridge starting to build in. You see this dome over the Pacific Northwest. This is essentially just the first indications that that ridge is starting to build in. We had one little system move through from the north and west. You can kind of pick it out, that little spin right there, helped to drag a little bit of moisture into northwest and southwest Montana today. But with the northwesterly flow riding around the top side of that high pressure ridge, that's going to be bringing in the next wave of moisture for tonight and into the day tomorrow. But before that ridge of high pressure really centers over the region and we start to quiet down more considerably. Now, like I was saying, there hasn't been much in the way of moisture for today. Most of that has been in our higher elevations, and if we're looking for the next wave to roll in, you can see this starting to take shape over parts of central and eastern Washington. That's what's going to bring at least the potential for some freezing rain for our valleys in northwest Montana, a little bit of light snow to our mountains. Again, not expecting much in the way of impact outside of that freezing rain. But as I stop this, we are starting to see a few radar returns popping up here in the Idaho Panhandle, close to the area south of Sandpoint, Idaho. But moving into, say, the Heron and Noxon areas, a little bit of light drizzle can't be ruled out, and maybe even a little bit of freezing rain. I think right now this is going to just be falling as rain. But the later on in the night we go, the more likely we will see freezing rain. Places like the Highway 200 corridor here, all the way down to, say, Plains, or even, I would say even all the way down to Ravalli down here, where it intersects with US 93, parts of US 93, US 2, as well as Highway 56 there. All of these areas, including Libby, Troy, Knox and Heron, Thompson Falls, all the way over towards the Flathead Valley and even to Polson, could see a few slick spots out there for tomorrow. Can't rule that out for the morning commute. And there is even the potential down on the I-90 corridor from St. Regis to Superior to Alberton, Frenchtown, Missoula. We can't rule that possibility of a little bit of light freezing rain, though the likelihood of that goes down more significantly. So that's the driver of all that. I do want to bring up one other thing. As we did have an earthquake in the state earlier on this afternoon. It wasn't necessarily in western Montana, but I know we have viewers from all over the state who pop in, so I want to bring up at least a little bit of information about that. And that occurred over here near Great Falls. It happened this afternoon, right around 12:41 in the afternoon. It initially was reported as a magnitude 5.1. That was revised to a 4.9 shortly after, and then revised even further down to a 4.2. And it was here just to the north and east. Oops. Let me get that all pulled back up because I hit the wrong button. Get this back in line with what I was trying to do here. Zoom in here a little bit closer. I'll get that information up again. So again, this happened just to the north and east of Great Falls, was dropped down to a 5.2, measured at a depth of around 6.2 miles, at least from the last update that I saw on this. But it was located here just to the northeast of the Air Force Base, Malmstrom Air Force Base, and Great Falls itself. There was shaking reported all the way up to places like Big Fork. I'll zoom back out. That's going to disappear, but we had some shaking all the way out here towards Big Fork. I saw a report of some shaking up towards Kalispell. Most of this was centered for areas east of the divide, though, so places like Helena, back over here towards Choteau, had a little bit of that shaking, and even into parts of southern Alberta, towards the Milk River area, we had some reported shaking there. Fortunately, from everything that I have heard so far, no reports of major damage, no injuries, just some minor damage here and there, so nothing too crazy. There is still the potential for some minor aftershocks. Most of these would be less than a 4.0, or less than 3.0, I should say. I think the USGS was only giving it around, say, a 25% chance of a magnitude 3.0 quake over the next, say, 2 to 4 days. Following this one. So that'll be something we have to watch out for. There is still the possibility that we could see a few more earthquakes in that area, but that was, again, a little bit of that earth-shaking surprise earlier on this afternoon near Great Falls. Outside of that, again, today's been a pretty quiet day. Now, going back into that forecast for tonight, hopefully no more shaking goes on across the area. We're just going to be looking at those cloudy skies right now. We've got temperatures at 33 in Kalispell, 34 in Missoula, 35 in Bozeman, and 31 in Dillon. The temperatures, especially up here into northwest and west central Montana, are going to be very important with that potential of freezing rain. If we see those temperatures down to 32 degrees or colder, and that rain moving in, just because snow levels are up around 4,000 feet, we could be dealing with some slick issues for tomorrow morning's commute, getting off to work and school, so certainly be aware of that. Now, temperatures tonight are expected to pretty much stabilize where they are. Up across northwest Montana, we're looking at 31 Kalispell, 31 Missoula, 35 Thompson Falls, and 34 in Libby. But if those temperatures fall any more, especially towards Libby, Thompson Falls, can't rule out more of those issues when it comes to freezing rain. But we're going to be right on the edge of it, so it's going to be very, very close. I don't think we're going to be talking about widespread freezing rain. These are just going to be isolated pockets, but with those, we could see black ice development for tomorrow. And then again, keep this in mind for Friday night into Saturday morning, very much the same thing will be possible. But I think the further south of Interstate 90 you get, southwest Montana, we should just be looking at cloudy skies. Maybe a little bit of light snow tries to get in there as we head into early tomorrow morning down towards Butte, Dillon, and Bozeman. But I think the likelihood of that is only around, say, 10 to 15%. And even the rain up here, the freezing rain potential is only around a 20 to 30% chance, too. So this isn't a widespread, highly impactful system, but it is something that could create some minor impacts. You notice those temperatures back down into the lower 20s in southwest Montana. That might partially be due to the fact we see a bit of clearing. As we go throughout the night, we could see a little bit of a break. Those clear skies allow those temperatures to fall. Further off to the west, we are going to be stuck under the clouds the whole time. And those clouds are going to essentially act like a blanket insulating the ground below and helping to keep those temperatures up just a little bit more. Now, as for tomorrow, cloudy skies are still going to remain the primary feature of our weather. We will see the chance for some light showers. By the afternoon, this will transition over to all rain in our valleys. The freezing rain potential will, at least for the short term, be over, but still some spotty showers can't be ruled out. High elevation snow. But you notice temperatures tomorrow a little bit warmer than even what we saw today. Kalispell, our cool spot outside of West Yellowstone at 39. Elsewhere, we're talking low to mid 40s. And places like Thompson Falls, Hamilton, we could even be nearing the upper 40s. Right now 46 is that high temperature, but as that ridge of high pressure builds in more and more, we may see those temperatures creep up just a little bit higher for tomorrow, something we'll be watching very closely. But after that, temperatures are only going to warm up even further. So, like I say, this is what we're tracking. Tonight and Friday, mountain snow with that valley wintry mix of rain, freezing rain, and snow. And this is not the graphic I wanted, but here's another look at how much moisture is coming in from parts of Washington and even Oregon. We're not going to get that much moisture into western Montana. A lot of that is going to get squeezed out by the Cascade Mountains. We're already seeing that, and we'll just kind of get the residual moisture off of that. So not looking at widespread heavy precipitation, but you'll see that here as we go throughout the night on Future Tracker. Pretty isolated in nature right now, mostly just in the higher elevations along the state line and along the divide. But as we get closer in towards sunrise tomorrow, you notice the isolated nature of these showers. Down in the valleys, this could be freezing rain. Up at higher elevations, this will be all snow. But you notice how we get a little bit more enhancement right on US 93 closer to 8 o'clock. That's when I think we'll get probably our best chance for precipitation, east and west of the Flathead, Mission, Missoula, and Bitterroot valleys. Question mark is, where are those temperatures at 8 o'clock? Are we below freezing? Could be looking at freezing rain. Are we above freezing? And we're just talking about just general old rain at that point. So that's going to be the big question mark for all of these areas, especially, again, north of Interstate 90 throughout tomorrow morning. By, say, 9, 10 o'clock, all of the moisture, I think, falling in the valleys will be falling as just rain. We'll see those temperatures back into the upper 30s and 40s by this point, and we'll see those continuing to climb into the mid-40s for many areas by the afternoon. But notice how it's just a quick wave of moisture that rolls through the area. Mostly is snow in our mountains, but we could see some of this down towards Bozeman around midday tomorrow. I think better likelihoods of some snow down towards, say, Big Sky, the Gravelly Mountains, south and east of Ennis there, down towards West Yellowstone, where we see that accumulation. Same story goes for the Beartooth and Absaroka Mountains for tomorrow afternoon, but I think by the time we get into the late afternoon, we're pretty quiet for the short term, but here comes the next wave. So really that's the main story. It's a wave of moisture, a break, a wave of moisture, and then another break. So that's kind of what we're in with this decaying, essentially plume of moisture from Washington. So we get into tomorrow afternoon, very similar pattern. Northwest Montana sees those rain showers, maybe a little bit of light snow towards Lookout and Marias passes. And then increases in coverage as we get closer to, say, 9 to midnight. But after that, we slowly start to see this moisture taper off. And by Saturday morning, high pressure is in control. And we are seeing those temperatures climb in a big way. The other thing we're watching out for, and this will tie back into Future Tracker really quick, into the Friday evening, Saturday morning time frame. You notice how there's that enhancement there right along the divide towards Marias Pass. That's going to bring a big increase in winds to areas just east of the divide, so technically just outside of our viewing area, but close enough. So right along the divide here, the East Glacier Park region, the southern Rocky Mountain front, and then into the northern high plains, including places like Browning, Babb, St. Mary, East Glacier Park Village, down towards Rogers Pass. We do have a high wind watch that'll be in effect for Friday evening and Saturday morning. We could be talking wind gusts anywhere from 55 to 75 miles per hour in this area coming down off of the mountain. Those Chinook winds will essentially increase coming down off of the mountains and could lead to a bit of a blowover concern for those north-south roads, so like Highway 89. For high-profile vehicles, that could be a bit of a problem. Again, that area is, I wouldn't say notorious, but it is pretty typical for these kinds of west to east or northwest to southeast moving storm systems to bring some pretty strong winds out there. That's probably going to be the greatest concern out there, will be the winds. For the rest of the area, we're probably not going to see quite as much in the way of an increase in the winds. Southwest Montana, we could see gusts 20 to 30 miles per hour, but well below high wind watch or even wind advisory criteria at that point. Something we'll be watching, but in general, not expecting for most of western Montana much impact from that, except for right along the eastern side of the divide. With that, high pressure builds in for Saturday and Sunday. This is going to be a very early morning or chance of 10%. Then we'll see another storm system essentially break the ridge down into Monday and Tuesday. So you see a little bit of a pattern here, 30-10, 30-10. There's 0 and 0 on each side of those, essentially bookending that pattern. So with this, we'll see, oops, this was a little further than I wanted it to go back, but it gets the right sense. As we get into Sunday, you see quiet. I think we're going to be looking at partly to mostly cloudy skies across the region. But then we get into late Sunday night into Monday. This is more likely going to be after midnight. But that'll be one thing we watch. This is actually showing still around 8 o'clock on Sunday. That's a little faster than most of the models have been showing so far. So that may be a little bit of an adjustment to the forecast. Maybe late Sunday into Monday, we see that moisture move through. But you notice, pretty isolated in nature. And honestly, this has been trending down over the last 24 hours. There was a big swath of moisture across west central and southwestern Montana yesterday for this particular storm system. So the trend is a downward one with the amount of moisture. This one would be all snow up over, say, 4,500 feet, and all rain for areas below 4,500 feet. I don't think we're going to be looking at a freezing rain situation in this case. It'll just be rain in the valleys, snow up in the mountains, and maybe some light accumulations for some of our passes. But it's going to be right on the edge. Some of our lower passes may actually still be in the rain section. So snow levels are pretty high for this time of the year, and that's been the trend all for a decent chunk of this winter. We've just been stuck in these high Pacific type storm systems, high snow levels, and rain in the valleys. So much of the same that continues. We could see a quick little push of moisture into Tuesday, but you notice how that pretty much evaporates. And by that point, high pressure is once again building into the region. We could be talking a more significant warm-up into Wednesday and Thursday of next week. Now, this forecast doesn't quite go out that far, but looking into this weekend, Saturday, Sunday, we're talking temperatures anywhere from 15 to nearly 25 degrees above average area-wide. So we could be talking about some near record highs. Not going to say we're going to break any Saturday and Sunday, but it is going to be plenty warm. It's going to feel like spring. And even with temperatures dropping into Monday and Tuesday with that next storm system, we're still talking temperatures anywhere from 12 to 15 degrees, or 10 to 15 degrees above average across the region. So the warm air really isn't going anywhere. We're going to need a much bigger push of cold to essentially flip the script on our forecast temperatures and such. There is one graphic I want to see if I can find just really quick. And it's related to Bozeman once again. And this is going to go out a little bit further. But notice as we get into Thursday and Friday, we're right back there into the lower 50s. And there are some indications, right now it is a low likelihood of this, but there is the possibility that some valley locations in southwest Montana, even places like the Bitterroot Valley, depending on how inversion's set up, that we could even approach 60 degrees as we get into the middle and latter parts of next week. That's, again, getting a little bit less likely, probably only around, say, a 15 to 20% chance of seeing those temperatures in the 60s, but it is still a chance, and that would be really getting into record territory with that high-pressure ridge building in. So that's definitely something we're going to be watching very closely. We'll know a little bit more about that as we head into the weekend and into early next week, but in general, just be prepared. Much warmer temperatures are expected, as we get into this weekend and then into the middle and latter parts of next week. So I will say one thing before I start to wrap this up. Some meteorologists are hinting in on the potential of a more significant pattern change as we get closer to, say, the 10th, 11th, 12th of February. I'm not going to jump onto that boat just yet, but it is something to kind of keep in the back of our mind that there is the potential for at least some colder air, maybe even a colder pattern with some snowier weather. Gets more complicated than that, but I would just say I'll be watching that very closely. But I think for me, looking more than 10 days out is essentially as it's playing with fire when it comes to a forecast. There's so many little things that can change. So I would say this pattern recognition, it wouldn't likely be until we get to about the 12th or the 10th, the 8th through the 12th. of February before we really start to see anything of significant change in the forecast. But that's kind of the window of when we could see something like that. But certainly I will be here to keep you informed on all of that. But with that, that's pretty much everything I have. Again, if you've got any last minute questions, feel free to ask those as I kind of just wrap all of this up and finish it off for the night. So the key takeaways, again, talking about the earthquake, we did have that earthquake near Great Falls earlier on this afternoon. That was around 12:40, 4.2 magnitude. No major damage, no injuries, all good news there. Still is the potential for a few aftershocks there, but I think most of the shaking, if we see any more of that or record any more of that, would be further off to the east and not really affecting our area all that much. That could always surprise us, though. That's what earthquakes do, is we're not really prepared for them until they're here. Best thing to do is just know kind of a plan on what to do when they start shaking, and I'll just put a little personal plug in. I did that in one of my more recent 3D weathers, my last one of my earthquake series, 3-part series on earthquakes. I go through some of the safety tips that you can follow if the ground starts to shake underneath our feet. And so certainly go back and go and take a look at that. You can find that on our NBC Montana YouTube channel, or even just by searching 3D weather on our website. It's on our homepage, nbcmontana.com. So again, enough talk about the earthquake. As for back to the weather for what we can expect for the next 48 hours, we've got a couple of waves of moisture. It's going to be a valley wintry mix, especially for areas of northwest and parts of west central Montana. Freezing rain will be our biggest concern with that. This will likely be freezing rain, and snow up at our higher elevations, pass level and such. We're going to be all snow. Not expecting much impact there. Maybe a dusting upwards to 2 inches. Most likely for places like Marias Pass as we get into Friday night and Saturday morning. Elsewhere, just some light showers, and by the afternoon tomorrow, this should be all as rain before we get another window of freezing rain into early Saturday morning. But then that system moves out before sunrise in most places, and high pressure builds in for this weekend. Overall shaping up to be very nice, partly to mostly cloudy skies, temperatures in the upper 40s and lower 50s. Before we see a quick little system move in for Monday and Tuesday, that will bring us more mountain snow and valley rain. The coverage of that has been dwindling over the last 24 hours. We'll see if it, essentially windshield wipers back the other way and we see more moisture. But right now, the likelihood of shower activity is only around, say, 20 to 40%. We'll have more information on that one as we go into the weekend as well. And then right now it does look like high pressure builds back in for the middle and latter parts of next week. Temperatures climbing back well above average, 20 to maybe even 25 degrees above average. We could see a few area inversions back in our valleys west of the divide. That would limit our warming for a few areas, especially northwest Montana. Could lead to some morning fog and low stratus clouds, but again, that's one thing. As we get a little bit closer to it, we'll be able to give a better idea or a better sense of what we could expect. So with that, I will wrap this up. Thank you for spending a little bit of your evening with me as I ramble on about weather and earthquakes, but I hope you enjoyed. I hope you have a safe rest of your evening and a great rest of the night, and also looking forward through the end of the weekend. Have a safe weekend as well. Likely we'll be back for another one of these updates as we head into the early parts of next week, Monday, Tuesday time frame. But with that, tune into our live broadcast tonight at 10 o'clock for the latest news updates, in addition to some weather updates. But if you're here, most of what you've already seen, I'll be talking about just in a more condensed form. But of course, always tune in. And then tomorrow morning, NBC Montana Today with Chief Meteorologist Brooke Foster and Jason Hurst, starting at 5 o'clock, running through 7. So have a great one, everyone. I'll see you all on the next one of these little updates. And have a great night with NBC Montana. I'm meteorologist Mitchell Coombs.